It's no secret that PvP is one of the best moneymakers in old school RuneScape, but the majority of the player base doesn't actually do it. After maxing my 60 attack pure, I set out on a new journey to see how accessible it is to create a new pure in 2023. Along that journey, I decided to compile a list because there's nothing really out there on YouTube that tells you what quests you can do, what quests you need to avoid, and other miscellaneous tips, so I just wanted to kind of fill the gap because there's already some great guides, like Met Mad Cow's How to Build a Baby Pure, or Theoatrix, he has a guide where he shows some items that you would need to start a pure, what quests, things like that, but I just wanted to lay it out in a simple format that would be easy to digest. So after you've read through all of these title cards, you've pretty much already finished the video, but what I've done is I've went through and recorded my own progress so that you can see how I did it. One important thing to note is you do not need to follow the quest list in that particular order. That's just so that you can avoid skilling as much as possible. You will still need to skill to complete some of the quests if you do the whole list. I'm not really going to touch on this topic because it's pretty common knowledge and there are other videos on it, but depending on your pure build that you're going for, it's going to vary on the quest list you need to follow. For example, the list that I have compiled here is for a 60 attack pure NHing build. So you would be going for 52 prayer, 60 attack, not too high of a strength level, but a really high range and magic level. To avoid making this video too long, I'm not going to read through all of the tips, but there are a few that I wanted to highlight. For example, if you have access to the RuneLite plugin Quest Helper, it's going to change your life. It'll give you on-screen pass, required and suggested items and levels. It basically does the quest for you. The second tip would be to use the YouTube channel Slayer Music 1. He has some video guides called Quick Quest Guides, and it's going to give you the best possible teleports and also walk you through step by step what you need to do.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Utilizing both of these tips can save you a lot of time in the long run. If you've been paying attention to the background footage, you may notice that I'm not actually following the quest guide. That's because it didn't exist at that point. My goal for the account at the time was to PK at different combat brackets and just have fun along the way because there is quite a bit of questing and training to do to set your account up properly. For the earlier combat brackets, range and mage are honestly some of the more viable options because it gives you better KO potential. For example, if you train magic, you have access to bind or snare or entangle. Even just a couple more seconds attacking someone can help guarantee a kill. And then with range, you have options such as the Dwarf Cannon quest, where you can use a Dwarf Cannon and not actually get HP XP, but get a ton of range levels. And if you're going to be a Glass Cannon Pure, you may as well have as much DPS potential as you possibly can. Another tip I didn't talk about earlier in the video, if you have access to multiple accounts, that's also going to speed up questing a ton. For when you forget items, you can use your main that has access to better teleports to get you that item quicker. Or if you need money, anything like that. The biggest complaint I hear with building a new pure account is that it's too expensive, which can be true if you're doing the fastest methods because you can easily spend over $1 mil per hour. But if you do the mediocre rates or even the slower rates, you can even make money while you're doing it. For example, I needed to get my prayer up so I could protect item or so I could start using protection prayers and actually Bridding. So what I did was I went to the Wildy altar and I started killing people that were already doing bones, and I would just bury those bones. It's simple yet effective because you really don't need that much experience on a pure for prayer. And you could just keep doing this to make money. And you will eventually run into just an absolute whale who is risking way too much money. I've ran into a person who had no food on him, no armor, and was risking over $4 mil. At this point in the video, I've finished compiling the quest list, so I'm just catching up and completing any quests that I've missed along the way. One thing I wanted to call out in particular is that you can complete multiple quests at the same time. For example, if you're doing Rune Mysteries and the Restless Ghost, there are certain steps that overlap. Or if you're doing the Waterfall Quest and the Tree Gnome Village, or, anything along those lines. If you're following Slayer Music's video guides, he's mostly going to call those out. Another place that you can find further information would be the Old School RuneScape Wiki. They have an optimal quest guide, which will tell you little tips and tricks about how you can get them done faster. As a testament to my earlier statement, I went out and did rev caves, I killed the bone runners at Wildy Altar, and just continued to make money, and I was easily able to make over $1 million without really trying. It really didn't take that much time. Over the years, the experience training methods have definitely changed. For example, with thieving, blackjacking used to be hands down the best method because you could just knock it out real quick. But at this point, you can also do a much more chill method of unlocking Client of Corend, which will give you access to Hosidius. You'll use the favor on Hosidius, which will end up unlocking fruit stalls. Once you get fruit stalls, you can literally stand in the same place and just drop the items repeatedly until you get to the thieving level you need. It is going to take a while, and the XP is not as good as blackjacking, but it's consistent, and like I said, it's not going to give you RSI, it's not going to be too boring. You can just sit there and watch a show on the side. Another example would be you can now complete the Monkey Madness 1 quest to access Monkey Madness 2 tunnels. The Monkey Madness 2 tunnels are much better for bursting and barraging, or even chinning, because you can get prayer potions back and not really have to spend as much money. The XP rates are also just better in general. If you end up running into any specific questions that aren't covered in this video, just look into an Old School RuneScape Wiki article or look into another YouTube video. Like I said, Mad Cow and Theoatric both have great guides for creating a pure. I'm sure I missed a few tips along the way, but hopefully the background footage can kind of help you out, fill any gaps that I didn't specifically call out. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out in the comments. Since this background footage does still have like 10 minutes left, I'm going to try to find a few topics to just kind of ramble about. So one topic that I know I want to talk about is the state of Old School RuneScape PvP. So I consistently hear that PvP is dead, no one's PKing. I literally had people make fun of me while I was making the account. Oh, you're making a pure in 2023? Why? Nobody even PKs, blah 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 blah. And that's just not true. Like, even if you don't run into a ton of PKers, you're going to run into some people in the wilderness that think the wildy is dead and risk way too much money. I know I've already said that in the past, but it's true. And I think that if more people would get past the PvP is dead mindset, they could end up having a lot more fun on the game. Because a lot of people just skill or just quest for fun, and then they're like, questing is so boring, skilling is so boring. So switch it up, do something new. And you don't have to just PK, even if you're playing on a pure, you can still PVM. I've done multiple raids on my maxed pure, and you don't even have to be maxed. After you're like 85 base stats, you're pretty set to go do a raid. If you can find a team or a group of friends, hell, even if you find a group of pure friends, you could go from there, because most people that have a pure already have a main. And a lot of the time, since this game has been out for so long, that main is a really high level. Another issue I run into while trying to PK with friends is the amount of available multi-spots in the wilderness. So some of the best spots that I found are the Wildy Altar, the Slayer Cave, and then the actual wilderness bosses. You're still going to run into the same issue where you need to hop a couple worlds to find people, but that's going to be the case with anything. Just like if you were going to go do PVM, you're not going to find your Bandos world free every time. You may have to hop, and if it's a busy time of the day, I'm sure a lot of the high level players can attest to this, that it can take a long time to find a world, even if you have multiple people searching. So, just keep that in mind. This is a big game, there are a ton of worlds, but there's also a ton of people playing. And there's also the botters in the game. Those are always going to be prevalent. Jagex is never going to be able to stop them completely. Definitely with the emerging AI technology, it's just going to get harder and harder to detect the difference between a human and a robot. So with that in mind, those robots can still be taken advantage of. For example, you'll see videos like Mad Cow, where he goes and kills the green dragon bots. That's a bit of an older method, but there's also the Wine of Zami bots. If you go to the Wildy altar, you'll see even more bots just running bones. Some of those bots are risking a lot of money. I teleported to the lava maze one day just to do a Wildy altar trip as normal, and I ended up killing this botter that had nothing on him. No food, just a rune pickaxe. He had like 2 mil worth of dragon throwing axes, or dragon knives, something like that, and then just a few pieces of runite ore. It literally looked like something fake, but it's real. Like, you will find the weirdest stuff in the wilderness and just make a ton of money. And don't get me wrong, you're also gonna have those days where you don't get as lucky. Instead of making 10 mil, you're gonna make 3 mil. But it's still going to be consistent money, because if you have loot keys enabled, you can easily get 60k keys back to back to back. You can get 5 of them just by hopping worlds. Then you go to Edgeville, you do it again. 80k times 5 adds up, or 60k times 5 adds up. It just depends on what bones they have on them at that time. Even with 50 magic and 50 range, I was easily able to make a mil doing PVM or PvP. It doesn't matter what combat bracket you are, there is money available out there. You just gotta know where to look for it. And sometimes that can be the hardest part, is knowing where you need to be at that current time. If you are really good at PKing, you should be at Rev Caves. That is where the best money is. That's where the most consistent money is. But if you're still learning and you're still, in the earlier stages of your account, going to the Wildy altar is 100 times easier to get a kill, and it's not going to be as much money. Like, for example, your average loot at the Wildy altar is going to be like 60k. At the very minimum, if you get a kill in the Rev Cave, you get 100k coins from their entry level. And most of the time, people don't bank until they have about 300 to 400k loot. Some people go even past that and they'll risk over a mil. When I was doing my 99 range guide, or not range guide, sorry, my 99 range grind for my pure, I often had like 2 mil in my looting bag, just because I would be rocking an Amulet of Avarice or something like that. Eventually I started getting slapped in the 1500 worlds by some maxed pures or some zerkers, and I learned my lesson. I never really kept over a mil past that point, but yeah, you will definitely find people risking way too much money. Another tip that I almost never hear talked about is if you can get someone to type right as you're about to go in for the spec, as long as your RNG doesn't shit out on you, you're almost guaranteed a kill because their hands are on their keyboard. That's if you can get them to talk. That's why you usually see PKers talking shit. It's so that they can distract their opponent and then drop them on their forehead. That's obviously not the only reason. It's PvP, so that brings a competitive edge to the game, which is always going to bring some friction because someone's going to think they're better than they are, or they're just going to be conceited. There's also the people who just like to troll. It doesn't matter what game you're in. You could be playing something as simple as Minecraft, and someone will just come through, grief your base and just destroy everything. People just like to troll on the internet, that's how it's always been. This account was created in 11 days. I just wanted to see how far I could get with the bond, but unfortunately that was cut short as the girlfriend and I went on a vacation to the mountains. Which the mountains were beautiful, I'm not complaining by any means. It was my first time going there and it was an awesome experience. But it did cut the grind short, and at this point I have pretty much lost all motivation to play the account. The XP gaps are getting much larger, and I'm fighting a lot of the people that are in the same combat bracket as my maxed peer. So if I'm going to be fighting those people, I might as well fight them on my maxed peer and have a much better chance at actually killing them. I know most of the viewers are already gone, so if you did make it this far, thank you. I appreciate you. You're an absolute legend for sticking it through to the end. Please remember to like and subscribe on the video, comment if you want. Like I said, I will do my best to answer any and all questions. Thank you, and have a great rest of your weekend.